Hello and welcome to the C3 Method Patreon Weekly Q&A with your host, Robert Polenic. Our goal is to educate you on everything health and fitness related with a clear, concise, and customized approach. We want you to know what you need to know and how to apply it in a way that fits you best. Today's Q&A is for the week of April the 21st. Sorry for those watching on Patreon and YouTube. I had to look down to kind of read through this intro because it's a little bit new for me. We did recently make a company change to our name. We went from Brutal Iron Gym to the C3 Method. I made a podcast recently discussing that change if you'd like to check that out. You can find our podcast. It's the C3 Method Podcast hosted by Robert Polenic. And you can find that on YouTube. You can find that on most popular podcast platforms. And that will be episode 2258 if you want to check that out. Now, if you're watching this or listening to this, this is the weekly Q&A that is featured on our Patreon service. I am making it available on podcast and on YouTube as well because I want to be able to share the information with as many people as possible. The benefit, if you're a Patreon member, is you get to submit your questions. So the questions featured in the Q&A is from our patrons on Patreon. So if you want to be able to submit a question, that's how you can do that. The Patreon right now is only $10 a month. So you get to participate in the Q&A by submitting questions. And then we also have monthly training programs. They're going to feature powerlifting, bodybuilding, fat loss and shaping as like one goal, functional athleticism, and then minimal equipment. So it's 5. There's powerlifting, which is its own, bodybuilding, which is its own, fat loss and shaping, which is a combined goal, the functional athleticism, and the minimal equipment. We're going to have a beginner program and an intermediate program. And then if you're an advanced athlete, I would recommend that you sign up for the one-on-one service because you're going to need more details and nuances and customization than what a generic kind of monthly program can give you. They're still going to be very good programs. So people who are beginners and intermediates are not getting crap. It's good stuff. But it's a way for people for only $10 a month to get training programs, and then they get to submit questions about those programs or nutrition or anything at all. They get to submit the questions and have them answered in the weekly Q&A. $10 a month, and then that's also a way that you can sponsor our business, kind of donate to help support all the different things we're doing for education, the podcast, the Patreon service, social media videos. Just help me cover the bills of everything if you'd like to. So if you've had benefit from the education material that we share and you'd like to donate or give back, the Patreon service would be a great way to do that at $10 a month. Cool. Okay, so that's all the intro stuff. Let's get into this week's questions. Question number 1 is, I've been dieting for a while. I've lost weight, but I'm planning ahead as to what my next move should be. When should I adjust my macros? Okay. Typically, whenever you're starting the process of figuring out how many calories you should have, and then within those calories, how much should be protein, you're going to base that starting number off of your body weight. There's a calculator online you can use. If you go to calculator.net and then type in BMR calculator, I really like that as a ballpark starting place, because you can put in your gender, age, weight, and then there's even an option there if you know around what your body fat percentage is. And then the calculator gives you what your BMR is, and that's your basal metabolic rate. That's how many calories you burn by just simply being alive. And then it has a chart that shows, okay, based on your activity level, whether you're sedentary, you exercise 2 or 3 times a week, 4 or 5 times a week, whatever it might be, there's an estimation for what your maintenance calories should be. And then using that estimation, you can then kind of start from there, see how your body responds, and make some adjustments. I used to teach at the university level. I taught exercise physiology labs, and we did all the fancy testing protocols you could do to find out what a person's BMR is, using like breathalyzer test, DEXA scan, BOD-POD, which is an air displacement test, a whole bunch of other things. And the calculator online gets you close enough as well. So there's a lot of research, a lot of craziness around it, but even the very fancy stuff still just gives you something to start with, but then you have to implement it and see how the body responds. One of the best ways to understand that is where are you coming from? If you're coming from a place of overeating, your body is going to be in a different health state than if you've been in a place of undereating or inconsistent eating. An analogy I use is if somebody's asking for directions and they want to learn how to get to New York City, and you can substitute whatever your goal is. You want to learn how to get stronger. You want to learn how to get bigger muscles. You want to learn how to lose fat. So whatever your destination, and whatever the destination is, if somebody's asking me how to get to New York City, I have to first know where they are. So if they're in Miami or they're in Los Angeles, those directions are going to look very different. So where you start changes the route in which that you would go to get to your destination. And that's why it's important that although we can do calculators, although we have all these fancy metrics for figuring out what the calories quote unquote should be, you still have to implement it, you still have to experiment and see how it goes. Now, this person's been doing this for a little while, so they probably already have a pretty good idea of where their calories should be in order to create progress, because they have been making progress. And they have a good idea of what their protein should be, because if they're making training progressions, they're not overly sore and feeling beat up and tired, their protein is probably sufficient. In general, the way I would recommend to make macro changes is as your weight changes, recalculate or readdress those numbers. So if you've been eating, let's say 2,400 calories, and you've been losing weight at a rate that you like, but it's starting to plateau a little bit, then maybe you drop to 2,300 or 2,300 or 2,200, and you see how the body responds. You see how your energy is. You make 100, 200 calorie adjustments. And then if your body weight started at 220, but now you're down to 205, maybe you can experiment with dropping your protein down. So maybe you were eating protein at 220, and if your energy starts to go down, meaning, okay, I'm not having great energy, I'm tired, my motivation for training is down a little bit, maybe I'll bring my protein down since I am lighter now, and that'll give me more allowance for carbs and fats, which might be better for energy. So there's quite a few things to consider when you're trying to decide when to change and what to change. But the general recommendation is as results start to plateau, you probably need to start bringing your calories down. And then out of those calories, you should look at what your protein should be. Protein is generally recommended to be between 20 to 35% of your total calorie intake. Sometimes we'll narrow that window 25 to 35%, or roughly just say a third of your calories should come from protein. That's a good general rule of thumb, but you might need to play up or down with that number as well. I feel like maybe at this point I'm not giving a great answer because there's so many things that factor into it. There really isn't just like an equation that says at X number of weeks, so at 4 weeks you drop 200 calories, at 8 weeks you drop another 200. It doesn't work that way. The body loses fat as a reaction to what you do. With activity, stress, food, hydration, all these things. None of those things are 100% consistent and predictable over the course of weeks and months. All of those things have variableness to them. So then how our body responds is variable. And then how we manipulate those things based on how the body's responding varies. So it is quite a process to figure it out. But in general, if they're making good progress overall and they're figuring out what their next move might be, is wait till things start to plateau a little bit, then play around with bringing your calories down. If as you bring your calories down, your energy crashes and you feel like crap, then you might have to have a couple days where the calories are a little higher, maybe on training days, a couple days where the calories are a little bit lower, maybe on non-training days, and you start to get into caloric cycling. Which can help you still create a net decrease over the course of several days or measured by a week, and that can help continue to drive fat loss, but help you better manage daily energy. You can also play around with nutrient timing. So when do you have the bulk of your carbs and fats? So during the day, you'll tend to have better energy if you have more carbs than fats, and if you have the carbs and fats ahead of the most active time of your day. And then protein is best to have peaked kind of around the most active time of the day or a little bit afterwards so you can actually recover from it. So there's a lot that you can play with other than just simply adjusting calories and even adjusting the macros. Maybe just changing the timing of the macros can help a lot. For example, one structure that's good for maximizing performance but also fat loss is to have carbs before your training session, and then when you train, you burn all those off as energy, and then after training, no more carbs. Super low carbs. You focus on proteins and like maybe minimalish fats, so that way you feel satiated throughout the rest of the day. And that helps you lose a lot of body fat, but you still have the carbs before the workout to maximize performance. So there's quite a few things that you can play with. I don't know if I answered that very well, but hopefully I gave you some thoughts and some things to play with and think through. And then if you have any other questions, which you might have more questions now than ever, go ahead and submit them on the Patreon page, and I'll answer those individually and or add them to next week's Q&A. Okay. Golly, I don't know if that was helpful. Next question. What impact do calorie-free additives have on fat loss? None. They can, I guess, potentially have impact on your digestion. So if you're having something that's calorie-free, but it contains a lot of sugar alcohols, you can get bloated, you can get gas, you can have some digestive issues. But if it's calorie-free, chances are it's going to have no measurable or significant impact on fat loss unless you're doing like something crazy extreme. So for example, like spray butters. If you ever see, I think it's like, I can't believe it's not butter, like there's spray butters you can use, and they'll say on the back that it's 0 calories for like 2 or 3 like spurts. But then you'll see people that put like 17 or 20 spurts on it, or they'll do, 5 spurts on 5 different meals and ends up being 20 to 25 throughout the day. And then the calories do add up because it is an oil actually. So sometimes things will be registered as calorie free, but that's only at the volume or the serving size that they say. So if you're having, 3x, 4x, 5x, 10x the serving size, you might be accruing more calories out of that than you would recognize. But in general, calorie-free items, if they're consumed at the normal kind of serving sizes, they'll have very minimal, if any, effect. You can think of it as flavor additives to drinks, diet sodas. If you have a sugar-free dressing or a sauce, as long as you're staying within the recommended serving size, you're likely not going to see any real significant impact. The only caveat I would say to that is as somebody's dieting for a competition. So if you're getting ready for a bodybuilding show, maybe you do bikini, wellness, figure, women's physique, men's physique, classic physique, bodybuilding, any of those categories, the little nuances of those calorie-free things do start to matter later in a prep. But for most people just looking for general fat loss or improving overall aesthetics, they're not going to have any negative impact whatsoever on fat loss, but you do have to be a little cautious or aware that they can negatively impact digestion quality. Okay. Next question. Do you ever incorporate scheduled refeed days into the week, or just based off of feel? And is it more important to go off of aesthetic feel, i.e. feeling soft and pudgy, versus like physically I'm tired or gassing out more in my workouts? LOL. Trying to learn a feel for what's normal and not just attribute my tiredness to food and overeat or eat in a way that doesn't align with my goals. Okay, so do you ever incorporate scheduled refeed days into the week? Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit built in on the way in which I manage my clients. So all of my clients have some degree of a caloric window. It depends on their ability to be adherent to calories in general, their experience with tracking foods, the severity or the depth of which their goals are. So some people can have like an 800 calorie window. Maybe they're supposed to be between 2,400 and 3,200 calories a day. So it can be a pretty big window. Other people might have like a 200 calorie window. Maybe we want between 1,800 and 2,000 calories a day. I almost always, and I can't even think of an exception, except like the only exception I can think of is if I gave them exactly like what foods to eat. But when I ask people to hit a calorie target, I ask them to do it within a range. And number one reason is no one will get their calories down to exactly precisely the same every single day unless they eat the exact same foods every single day, which for the longevity, the long term of their goal, say somebody's just wanting to lose like 30 pounds over the next 3 months, they're not going to eat the same food every day for 3 months. That's just not realistic and it's unnecessary. So I'll give them a little bit of a range. So that way, if they have one day they have chicken breast or they have white fish, or maybe they want to have a steak and vegetables for dinner, they have some variety to their food sources, and that can help sustain progress long term because it avoids mental burnout. So as long as they're within that range, we would consider that successful. Does that mean that some days are going to be slightly more in a deficit than other days? Absolutely. But overall, in general, they're in an appropriate deficit. Or if they're building muscle, they're in an appropriate surplus. Or if they're maximizing performance, they're in an appropriate around maintenance-ish calories that is sufficient enough to get the adaptations they want from training, but not so much that they're gaining body fat or unnecessarily losing body fat. So the range is accurate to their goal, but it does allow a range. And then within that range, they have the freedom to, if they're feeling a little sluggish, eat higher in that range for a couple of days, bring the energy back up. If they're feeling great, but they want to push for maybe more fat loss, or maybe they're feeling kind of puffy, they would bring those calories down within that range. So I like to give people freedom within a range that they can micromanage how they feel throughout like every day. So there's, in a sense, a refeed component already built into their program. If they feel a little crappy, low energy, low motivation, eat a little higher in the range for a couple days, and that tends to lessen. So they get in a better place. If they're feeling great energy and they're like, yeah, but I want to push for more fat loss, they'll push lower in that range, but they'll stay within the range. And then all of a sudden, they'll be dropping a little more fat, but then they'll probably run into low energy and then kind of bring those calories back up again. So there's already a little bit of variability within how they can use the range they have. When I do a refeed is in cases in which we're pushing for very significant or substantial results. I'll give myself as an example. So right now, this year, I am pushing to get leaner. Last year in the summer, around, I think it was like June, July last year, I was at 297. I was trying to build a lot of muscle, and my goal was to get to 300 pounds, just because I'd always wanted to be 300 pounds with 20-inch arms when I was 16 years old. I got to 297 and was having just major sleep issues. And I felt like, okay, even if I have a big meal, which I wouldn't do because it was cheating, I wanted 300 pounds of like good weight, not just because I ate a bunch of pizzas. But at 297, I was like, it's not worth 3 more pounds if my sleep is crap and I just feel like fat and lazy and can't move all day. So I went ahead and started dieting. I got down to 277 by the end of the year. So I started this year, 2025, at 277. I'm now down to 258. And I've played a little bit with up and down. So I've been as low as 249, went back up to 265. I'm back down now to 258. So I've been playing a little bit with refeeds and different pushing intensities. So what I tend to do with myself is I'll bring my calories down quite low for a couple days and push for fat loss. And then as my workout performance and energy starts to suffer, I would reintroduce more carbs at the beginning of the day. So I'd wake up, have a really big carb meal, let that process, and then I would train midday, have really good at workout energy, kind of re-excite the motivation, and then I have no carbs the rest of the day to really pull my calories back down and promote fat loss. So I'll play around with that, and if my training is going well, I don't have the big carb meal. If I feel like my training is going to crap and I'm really kind of tired, I'll go ahead and reintroduce those carbs for a couple days. I really just play based on how I feel, and that has helped me a lot with managing the long-term progression, making sure that I am getting leaner over time, but that I can maintain training performance, I can maintain motivation and excitement for the goal long term enough to actually reach the goal, and I can monitor my recovery. So if I start to feel achy in my joints, if I start to feel kind of like overly tired, then I would know I need to maybe reintroduce those carbs, let my body catch up, heal up a little bit, and then I can push again. So I tend to do refeeds in cases like that based on the individual feedback. If it's myself, I know what's happening 24/7, or at least I believe I do. We all have our own blind spots, and we tell ourselves all our own bullshit. So as much as a normal person would do that, I do have an idea of what's going on within me, and then I can kind of pick and choose. And I've been doing this. I'm 41. I've been dieting since I was 15. So I've been doing it long enough to know, do I just want the carbs or do I need the carbs? So I've developed that over time. And that is what I would recommend for anyone if they're figuring out refeed days, is to maybe start with having them scheduled. So if you feel as though you're really pushing your progress and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like crap, I'm super tired, my training progressions are going to trash, do I need a refeed day? Well, do a day in which you go back up to maintenance calories and shift your carbs to be as early in the day as possible. If you do a maintenance calorie day, carbs earlier in the day, do that for a day. Maybe 1 to 2 times a week. You can pick 2 times a week, try it for a while, or pick once a week, try it for a while. And then you're going to start to see, okay, well, if I did that on Saturday, by Tuesday, I feel like crap. And then I have to wait till next Saturday. Ugh. Well, you can then have a refeed day maybe on Wednesday. Or you can lessen how intense you're pushing those other days. So maybe you don't need to push as intensely on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, so you're dead by Wednesday. Bring that deficit up a little bit. Maybe on those 3 days, you're at like 1,500 calorie deficit. Just lessen that to 1,000, and then you don't feel like crap until Thursday or Friday, and then your refeed is again on Saturday. It's a lot of give and take and playing around with what fits your schedule the best based on work and food availability and convenience, and then what fits your personality type. So some people can push real hard for 3 days, then they need a break. Some people can push for a week. Some people can push for 2 or 3 weeks. Some people will push for a month. It really depends on how soon you lose motivation and training performance. So there's a lot there in regards to information, but that is a recommendation, is to start with it at least once a week. See how you feel on that day, see how you feel the days after, and then see if that frequency is enough, or if you need to increase the frequency or lessen the intensity of the deficit on the days between the refeeds. And then refeed in general, I just go right to maintenance calories, and again, push your carbs early in the day. I don't think you really need to go above maintenance. You do start to then accrue body fat, and it has like a negative impact in regards to long-term progression. So that would be a recommendation to start with. Experiment. As you do experiment, submit more questions, and we'll visit that in some future Q&As. Cool. Okay. That was actually all of our nutrition questions, so just those 3. And then let's get into training. What do you think is the best music to listen to while working out? I want to maximize my performance, but I'm not always in the mood for aggressive music. I wondered if there were benefits to calmer music. Okay. The best thing to listen to while working out. I don't think there is a best. It's absolutely individual, and for every individual it can change. I know for myself, when I am crazy stressed in life, I actually won't listen to anything, or I'll listen to one song on repeat. This is actually such a predictable thing now that unfortunately Meredith will actually know. So if I'm training at home and I have our speaker on, she can hear a little bit of like the bass and stuff throughout the house. So she'll hear like a repeated bass line, and she was a dancer for like 20 some years. So she knows music very well. So I'll come upstairs and she's like, how are you doing? Like, is everything okay? Because she automatically knows, okay, he listened to the same song for like 2 hours on repeat. He's probably a little stressed. So that's something I'll do. And then when I'm not as stressed, I do like to just listen to like regular music where it's actually a different song over and over again. So that's another thing. Sometimes I'll listen to calm music. Sometimes I listen to like I don't even know what the categories of music are. I don't like to listen to rap unless it's like old school, like 90s rap, like millennial, like highlights kind of rap. I listen to more alternative type music where it's not super slow, but it's not crazy aggressive, and it's not a bunch of like ridiculous language and all that chaos. I sound like a really old person. But I'll listen to that. Sometimes I'll listen to audiobooks. Sometimes I'll listen to podcasts. I'll check out YouTube videos on different subject matter I want to learn about. It's really kind of all over the place. It depends on how I'm just feeling that day and what type of focus I want or need. So I would not hold yourself accountable to doing anything in a certain way unless you felt like it. So if you go into the gym and you want to listen to aggressive music, listen to aggressive music. If you want to listen to calm music, listen to calm music. If you want to listen to nothing, listen to nothing. If you want to listen to a podcast or audiobook, then do that. Whatever the music or sound that you choose should be a complement to how you feel in the workout, meaning it shouldn't take away from the workout. So if you're listening to super aggressive music and you're shortchanging your like rest periods, so you're supposed to take 2 minutes, but you're like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing after 1 minute, I'm just going to go right back into it. And then also when you're doing movements, you're not paying attention to the mind-muscle connection. You're just like repping like boom, 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 and just shoving the weight around. That's not going to help. So if the music is causing you to train in a way that isn't optimal, adjust the music. Likewise, if you're listening to super slow music and you feel like you're yawning half the time and you're not even focused and you just want to go to bed, probably need to up that a little bit, make that a little more exciting. So really just pick something that's complementary to what you feel or need in that moment, and it shouldn't feel forced. That would be a general recommendation. How do you mentally prepare for a max effort lift? Okay. Well, this is different for everybody as well, just like the music thing. For me, that's not even going to be helpful. So I'll say what I do, then I'll say what some other clients do. For me, when I get ready for a big lift, I'm excited for big lifts. I don't lift to a max effort very often in my training. So when I was doing powerlifting competitions, I would usually not do a true like 10 RPE. RPE is a rate of perceived exertion, and a scale of 5 to 10 is typically used in weight training. 5 is you're moving, but it's no challenge whatsoever. 6 and 7 is, okay, I'm moving, there's a very light burn. 8 is, I'm moving, this is hard, but I can do it with good form. 9 is, this is really hard, my form is starting to like waver a little bit. These might not be the best quality reps, but the thing is freaking heavy and I'm surviving. 10 is an all-out, the best I could do. Maybe I survive, maybe I don't. So I never did 10s in training except for competitions. And very arguably, somebody could look at me in competitions and say, that didn't even look like a 10, it was more like a 9. And I would say, you're right. Because my goal was to do multiple competitions and get better over time. So very rarely in competitions did I go like quote unquote full send, because I don't want a major injury and I'm not looking to I would rather do 10, 15 pounds less on a lift, have it be clean, have it feel good, have myself feel confident, be safe, train for another couple months, do another meet, train for another couple months, do another meet. I really never put much value into each individual competition without looking at the more long-term picture for what I wanted out of my career. So my goal was to get an elite total, which I unfortunately never got in an actual meet. I got to the numbers and I did it in a mock meet at my gym, but I never did it officially. I got injured in one of my last meets. Long story, very short, is I tore 3 muscles, 2 in one leg, 1 in the other leg, doing my first attempt in a powerlifting meet, because the warm-up room wasn't the way that I thought it was going to be, and things were kind of different. Let's just leave it at that. So I got major injury. I trained for a year, came back, and hit some PRs on bench. Still did a really good deadlift. I think I deadlifted 660, and re-solidified that healthiness of being able to squat, bench, and deadlift again. And then my goals kind of changed. I started wanting to do bodybuilding more. So I was looking at that and saying, okay, I could keep pushing to try to get that elite total and maybe have another like big injury. Or I kind of reached those numbers. I feel content with those numbers. I came back from the injury and hit PRs after the injury. Maybe it's time to just start switching over. And this coincided with me switching the business from a public gym to being online. So it worked better schedule-wise and with things I had going on in my personal life. Meredith and I were dealing with some family health issues and some other odds and ends. There was everything in life coincided to where strength training probably wasn't going to be the best approach. Bodybuilding was going to be a better long-term approach. So I switched over. But back to the original question is when I would get ready for big lifts, I was excited for them. So I didn't really do anything. I put the weight on the bar. I looked at my timer. When my rest was up, I was like, hell yeah, let's go. And then I would go under the weight and do it. So what I would recommend if people do struggle with getting their mind in a positive place for max effort lifts is to review your cues. So try to have your cues limited to 3 or less things that you need to remember, and the fewer the better. So if there's a cue like on squats, if you tend to maybe when you unrack, you step back, you get into position, and then you forget to breathe. So just remember yourself, okay, big breath, big breath, big breath. And you're just going to repeat that. And that's your cue. So when you walk back and you get into place, you remember big breath, and then bam, you do your lift. So sometimes it's helpful to give yourself 1, 2, or at most 3 things to think of. And then also reminding yourself that, okay, I've trained for this. Like everything I've done in training makes logical sense, hopefully. Logical sense that this attempt at a big heavy weight is reasonable. I reasonably should be able to get close to doing this. And if I don't do it, oh well, I'll miss the lift. I'll survive likely. And then I'll train for another 4 weeks maybe and come back and do it again. So it's not the end of the world. I'm not going to die. And, I don't have to give up my career of powerlifting and, go knit for a living. If I miss a lift, who cares? It's just, that's the way the sport goes sometimes. So it's reminding yourself of your cues, reminding yourself that your training has prepared you for this, and then trying to think positively. Positive is, insanely significant, is you want to tell yourself, like, I'm excited for this, I'm ready for this, let's go. You do not want to tell yourself what not to do. So when you think of cues, think of doing cues, not doing cues. Meaning, make sure you don't look down. Make sure you don't do this. Don't give yourself don'ts. Give yourself do's. Do this, do this, do this. And it is much better for us to think of an action because it causes that action. When we think of a non-action, meaning don't do this, you then don't know what to do in place of that thing. So then you often will do the thing because you don't know what you're supposed to be doing other than the thing. So give yourself doing cues, not don't do cues. And then remind yourself to be positive. You can do this, crush this thing, let's have fun. This, all the positive things you can think of, all the self-motivation, happiness, all that. So that is what I'd recommend for getting yourself ready for max effort lifts, is to be excited, be positive, remind yourself what you're doing it for, and then go after it. Next question. I recently had to switch gyms due to a new job. The new gym is a commercial gym. Most of the machines don't feel like they match how my body moves. That stinks. The music is basic pop crap, and no one there trains hard. The environment sucks. How do you generate workout intensity when you have to train at a commercial gym? Okay. Always have a plan. Go in with, like, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Now, with that plan, you do not want to think of specific machines, meaning I'm going to do this machine, then this machine, then this machine, because in busy commercial gyms, you can't always make sure you're going to get that machine. So thinking concepts. Think of like a back workout. I'm going to do some type of pull down, some type of row, then some type of shrug. So maybe that's your sequence. So when you get there, you're going to do a pull down. Maybe the cable pull down is busy, so you go to a pull down machine. Then for rows, maybe the row machine is busy, so you now move over and maybe do some dumbbell rows. Then for shrugs, everything's busy, but maybe you found a Smith machine, so you do some Smith machine shrugs. If you think of categories of movements, that is helpful because you're going to have a plan, but that plan can be modified based on what's available. The next thing I would do is to play games with yourself in regards to setting intensity techniques and or purposes to your sets and reps other than just getting through them. One technique I really like is called cluster sets. So I'll do something for, if I want high reps, maybe it's a small isolation movement and I'm just trying to like pump up the muscle. I'll do a 20 rep max, then count to 20 seconds, do the same weight for as many reps as I can. Maybe I only get like 15 or 16. I'll count 20 seconds, do another set of the same weight. Maybe this time I get 14. And I'll do cluster sets like that. So very short rest times. It depends on how large the movement is. Rest times can be 10 seconds all the way up to 60 seconds. And then I just do the same weight every single set. And maybe I'll do 3 clusters, 4 clusters, 5 clusters, even 6 clusters. And that's a good way to kind of stay motivated, stay focused, and focused in on what I'm doing. And that can push up the intensity. A modification to that I like to do sometimes is extend the rest periods. So maybe between the first and second bout of effort, I only give myself 10 seconds. Then the next rest is 20 seconds, the next rest is 30, the next rest is 40, the next rest is 50, the next rest is 60. And then I kept the same weight every time, went to failure each time, and then by the end you did like 7 total sets and you feel destroyed. But it was a lot of workload in a relatively short time with really high intensity. So I like doing a lot of stuff like that. I'll sometimes do ascending sets as well. This is really good for pin select or selectorized or pin plate type equipment. So I might do a weight, let's say I'm doing 20 pounds and I do an easy, we can do a couple different ways. So one way is I might do a 20 reps, then 15, then 10, then 5, then back down to the weight I did for 10, back down to the weight I did for 15, back down to the weight for 20. And then if I miss those a little bit on like weight selection, I'll record that and then next week get a little more precise with my weight selection. Other times I'll just do 10 reps, start at a really light weight, go with a very slow tempo. So I did this actually on a seated lateral raise machine when Meredith and I were in London. I put it on 20 pounds and did 10 reps, super slow, very controlled. Went to 30 pounds for 10, 40 for 10, 50 for 10, 60 for 10, 70 for 10. Then by 80 for 10, it was like death and they were miserable. I then went from 80, dropped to 60 and went 10 and used rest pause if I need to, then dropped to 40. So I took 20-pound drops even though I went 10 pounds increases on the way up. I then did 20-pound drops on the way down, and I did 10 reps every set even if I had to do rest pause. So there's a lot of little games you can play with how you set up your sets and reps. And that's a great way to keep you focused on what you're doing because you're remembering which weight is next or what reps is next or do I need a rest pause here. It's keeping you focused in on what you're doing, which then helps you not notice somebody doing something dumb in the corner or what the music is or this or that. So that's kind of the main thing I do is I give myself stuff to do. I have a plan when I get there, but it's a conceptual plan, so I know what movement types I want. And then I give myself specific games and goals to do with my sets and reps. So if you implement those, that can help quite a bit with increasing your intensity. Next, I am thinking of competing in Hyrox. I was always discarding it because I thought it was CrossFit, which I fear because of the AMRAP, which is as many reps as possible mentality, and the regular lack of care for proper form and heavy weights. Yep. But Hyrox could be a very fun thing to do with my buddies and would, as opposed to a triathlon, reward me for being stronger/heavier. There is one in October. I'll probably do that for fun. I'm in a commercial gym though. How can I train for Hyrox when you can't do a huge circuit and or don't have access to the specific equipment? Okay, so a lot to unpack there. CrossFit, if you're listening to this, you're likely aware of what CrossFit is. CrossFit has a lot of Olympic lifts, and there's about 40 million opportunities for what an exercise could be in a competition. Hyrox, what it is, it's a completely different sport, but it's still the mentality of, can I do moderately heavy weighted things blended with cardio and make that a challenge for myself? So Hyrox events, you have to run 1K, which is a little over half a mile, between, I think it's 8 different events. So you run half a mile or 1K, You then do an event, you run another K, do an event, another K, do an event. So you end up running quite a bit. So I think it would end up being like 4 miles, 5 miles. I don't even know. What is it? So let me see here. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Ks. So that's how many Ks you're going to run. So 8 times 0.6-ish is how many miles. So you can do all the math there if you want. But it's a lot of running. And then in between the running, you have different events. So I'll run down through those real quick. You have ski erg, then you have sled push, then sled drags, and then burpee bounds for distance. And then you have rower, farmer's carries with kettlebells. Then you have a sandbag, I believe, walking lunges, and then wall balls. So it's a whole bunch of craziness, but there's no Olympic lifting in there. There's actually no barbells in there. So it can be a lot less intimidating in regards to the complexity of the lifts that you have to learn. They're much more just functional movements, meaning it's not as technique dependent. There's a ton of technique within these individual movements. But if you, like, for example, if you're going to do a barbell snatch, you don't just pick up a barbell and do that. Usually somebody's got to teach you what the heck that is and how to do it and where do you move this thing and that thing. Whereas if somebody says, hey, I just want you to go push this sled, there is a proper technique to pushing a sled, but for the most part, everybody's going to touch that sled and just start shoving it. So the barrier to entry, the friction to get started is much lower. So Hyrox events are gaining popularity. And then how you train for that in a commercial gym can be very challenging. I do have one client who is training in a commercial gym for a Hyrox event at the moment. So in answer to this question, I actually wrote this person an answer. I want to read through a little bit of what I told them as part of this Q&A. So there's a couple of options depending on the equipment the gym has, whether they have a skier, whether they have sleds. The one client I'm training, she has done Hyrox events before. She was a regional CrossFit athlete, so her work capacity is sky high. Her familiarity with these things is really good. She, at the moment, though, is having to train out of a basic commercial gym, which is crushing her soul, but we're surviving and we're getting through. So she doesn't have access to the ski erg, the rower, the sleds at the moment, or like sandbags or even I think she has kettlebells. So what we did is we have her training on a treadmill. This is going to hurt so many people's souls, like especially CrossFit athletes, to hear this. But she is running on the treadmill. Then at the base of the treadmill, we have dumbbells and a step-up box. And what she's doing is she's creating the circuits within her workout. So she's running on the treadmill, and then we actually have bands attached to the handrest on the treadmill. The one that goes across the front of your body that usually has those metal sensors to like check your heart rate. So she has bands on those. So she'll run and then she'll stop running, grab those bands, come off the back end of the treadmill, and we mimic doing a very low angled, very bent over position of ski ergs just to kind of like exhaust her. Then she gets back on, she runs for a little bit, then she'll come off, and the next thing we have her doing is dumbbell front rack step ups. And we're using that to mimic the sled push. Is that 100% the same? Hell no. But does it exhaust your lungs and your legs? Hell yes. So we're doing that. Then she'll get back on the treadmill, she'll run, and then we have her doing dumbbell hang hold toe squats, which is mimicking having to use very small steps to drag a sled. So it's basically very quad dominant extensions. So it's burning up her quads and getting her used to that. Then we get on the treadmill. Then she has some of the other things we're doing is we're doing burpees in place. We're doing dumbbell conventional deadlifts for high reps to mimic the rower. And then we're doing standing farmer's march. So farmers hold marches to mimic the kettlebell carries that you have to do in a Hyrox. Then we're doing front rack alternating reverse lunges. And the other one we have is a dumbbell goblet hold where you hold it like crosswise, like horizontally. So each dumbbell end is in each hand. And then we're doing thrusters. So Is it 100% accurate as to what she's going to feel in the High Rocks competition? No. But will that condition her and give her enough of a stimulus of misery to get her ready for High Rocks? Absolutely. So there are ways in which you can set up to do like High Rocks training in a commercial gym, depending on what equipment they have. So her structure, for example, all she needs is 2 light bands, a set of dumbbells, and a step-up box, and the treadmill. And that's been working out great. She's been kicking her own butt and dying doing the workouts that way. But it is possible, it is fun to set that up and try that stuff. So there's a couple exercise ideas for substitutions if you are training in a commercial gym and you're interested in doing High Rocks competitions. Okay. And then we only have one business question, like personal trainer question this week. So feel free to add more of those. If anybody's, over half of my clients are personal trainers, so all of y'all are welcome to add questions here. I know some of them are more price sensitive and business sensitive, so we do that in their individual one-on-one journals. But the question we have today in the Q&A was, how much should I charge for training sessions? In general, it's going to depend on the area that you live. You're going to be somewhat, I know this person, they're asking for in-person training sessions, not virtual. So the market where you live is going to dictate kind of the range that you can play within. If every gym around you is charging $60 an hour for training, well, that gives you a marker to think of. You can go under that, or you can do the same price but offer additional services as a way to quote-unquote undercut the market and draw people in. As you would maximize the people that you have for your time availability, you can then drop those extra services, or you can increase your price a little bit. And then as long as you're staying as full as you would like to be with clients, you can continue to experiment with charging more, and or maybe you charge more but add an extra service. As an example, a client I've been working with recently for just business consultations, she opened up a training center and she wanted to beat the local trainers in her area. One of the ways she decided to do that was to connect with me and learn how to do nutrition coaching. So she is adding nutrition coaching as a service to her personal training sessions, and she's advertising that because currently people are going to think like, okay, I can ask my trainer questions and they're going to help me kind of know what to eat. Generally, the advice is generic and anything you can find on Google. So she wants to be able to advertise customized programs, have before and after photos, really push that aspect of the service to differentiate herself from other trainers in her area. So she is charging right now the same amount as everyone else, but she's doing training sessions and customized nutrition programming. That is blowing her up. She's busy as heck. So now her next step is to start to increase that pricing offering. She has a couple choices. She can start to separate the two. She can do training only and nutrition as an additional service, or she can kind of keep it as a packaged deal, and people would have to pay a little bit more now just because she is full and she's doing well. So let's say comparatively, people in her area are charging $60 for 1 hour training session packaged together for X number of sessions per month. She can maybe charge $70 or $80 on average per session, but include the nutrition coaching as part of the service. And then she can kind of play with additional services beyond that. But that gives her some options. So the general, how much should I charge for training sessions, depends on how busy you want to be. If you want to be busy right away, undercut the market, get people in, be slammed, and then start to increase your prices and do that until people start to leave and maybe you get down to the number of hours that you would like to work. This is actually the method I used when I was younger and started when I started Brutal Iron Gym, the public gym that we had. I was just charging $20 an hour for training sessions. That is stupid cheap. I filled up. I was training 50 hours a week in person, face to face. So every single minute of the 60 minutes, I was in front of the person telling them what to do or talking to them or listening to them. So I was 50 hours. And then I was like, I am dying and I'm not making enough money and I'm still doing a bunch of other stuff like running the business, cleaning the gym and doing all this stuff. And at that time I was still teaching at the university. So 50 hours of in-person sessions plus teaching job. It was crazy, crazy, crazy. I then went from $20 an hour to $30 an hour. No one left. I went to $40 an hour, had very few clients drop off, and that actually still allowed me to increase my money. I gained more money per hour than I lost in clients, and then I was able to kind of build it out from there using different services. So it was a great way to get started, fill up my allotted time, and then slowly increase my prices. So that way I could make more money, but at least I had a pool of people already established. I had an income already established, and I had already generated the word of mouth. So if the local area was charging $60 an hour, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a great trainer, I'm better than everybody else, I'm going to charge $80 an hour. Doesn't help you if no one signs up. So you can eventually charge $80 an hour, or you can eventually overshoot the market, but you got to prove that first. You got to build some word of mouth. You got to build clientele first. So that gives you an idea. Is you can kind of match the market and do better services, or you can undercut the market and or do better services. But that kind of gives you an idea of where to start or how to start, and see how it grows from there. Awesome. Okay, so that was all of our questions for this week's Q&A. And remember, if you would like to submit a question for the Q&A, sign up to be a patron on Patreon for $10 a month, and then you can submit your questions. I will answer them. I answer all the questions in the Q&A here, and then I often will send private messages with extra information, just because I want to make sure people get the information they need. So you'll definitely get your questions answered for sure. And then also you'll get access to those training programs. Again, there was 5 topics: powerlifting, bodybuilding, fat loss and shaping, functional athleticism, and then minimal equipment. And we have beginner programs and intermediate programs. I'll be loading all of that throughout the rest of this week and the weekend, so that way you can see what those programs are for the upcoming month. And then they are updated and brand new every 4 weeks, every month. So it's a great way to get some good training programming, and then be able to ask any question you want for $10 a month. So I think it's a good service. Hope so. We do have people participating now, which is great, and the more the merrier. So hopefully it continues to grow. Okay, if you need anything, reach out to me. My email is c3method@gmail.com, and the 3 is spelled out THREE. So it's CTHREE method@gmail.com. And soon we'll have the website up and running. Right now it's still under brutaliron.gym.com, but it will be converting to C3 Method over this weekend. You can always find us on YouTube. You can always find us on Instagram. However you find us, I hope you do. If you need anything, let me know. I'm always here, and I'm always happy to help. I appreciate your support, and I want to make sure that you feel equally supported as well. Okay, as always, thank you for listening.